All right, folks. Hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you brought some questions that we can address as we go through this. Like always, you can post your questions in the sidebar there. Again, you can post them as they come to you, or if you've got something you'd like us to address as we go through, feel free to post now, and we'll either address them right away or sort of as we fit them into what we're covering. Today we've got a couple topics, although we're going to focus quite a bit on the use of tags and SEO. And before you sales-related folks go signing off, this stuff is pretty important for you, especially in the world we're living in where you're competing more and more against local businesses spending money on services instead of advertising. So we're going to give you a sort of human understandable description of how to use categories and tags effectively on your site, how it will help you get more benefits out of the content you're already posting, and the implications for SEO. So with that, we're going to talk about how these two related topics fit together. And let Ryan kick it off with a little visual aid of the filing cabinet.
Yeah, so I like to use the filing cabinet as an analogy to understand what a category is and what a tag is and what the differences are. But first, you need to understand that categories and tags are just ways of organizing content on your site. More and more, and we'll get into this in more detail in a little bit, Google is kind of moving away from using any kind of tags or categories as a benefit in SEO, and pushing you towards using it and making your site like a really friendly user experience. So categories should be sufficiently broad to cover everything you write about on your site. In our system, that's the menu item that goes across the top of your page. Tags, on the other hand, need to be slightly more specific, but not so specific that it would only apply to a single article. Tags are used to group related content together. So to pull it back to the analogy of the filing cabinet, a category might be one drawer, whereas a tag would be the individual folders within that drawer. So that should give you a 10,000-foot view, and now we're going to dive back into the specifics of how to actually apply this.
And obviously all of you already have categories on your sites. So we're not going to do a lot to change that, although as we mentioned last time, we've introduced some new custom categories. So if there happens to be that one topic you really want to highlight, you can do that in your nav bar. But the tags are a living, breathing piece of what you do. And just to sort of give some context here, historically, the old way, back when the internet was born, there was this notion of meta tags or meta keywords. And this was meant to tell computers like search engines, although this was almost before search engines, what the article or piece of content was about. But some really smart people realized, even though this is about dogs, if I put this is about helicopters, and whenever somebody searches for helicopters, they might find my stuff. And if I put this is about diamonds, I might get them to find my stuff. And so what happened was people started stuffing keywords. And there were lots and lots of ways that people did this, and the meta tags, using some really sneaky use of design in the web. And it basically meant that, look, anybody who wanted to do this could just basically lie about what it was about. And so Google started doing a lot when they came about to find out, what is this article really about? What is this event really about? How do I get past the games that people can play to the reality? And so they've continued to make progress here sort of 15 years later. So the only implications of tags is about finding relevant content. On our system, on your website, if you use the tag fireman on 2 articles, there's actually a page magically created in the background called a fireman tag page that someone or a search engine can go to find all of the articles related to firemen that actually have that tag. That's valuable for Google only insofar that it finds related, relevant content. So I want to really separate this notion of using, tags for pure SEO purposes, because now that word appears on your website. There is no benefit to you in using tags in that way. And Google continues to get smarter. You know, their goal is to find the best content for people. So they're not trying to hurt you as a publisher. They're not trying to do any of that stuff. They're just trying to get to the heart of the matter. And so they look about matching great content with the searcher's intent. And there was a number of updates over the last few years that got a lot of attention. Most recently is a major upgrade called Hummingbird. And we're going to write a blog post about it. I'm not going to get into the details here, other than to say, if you and I search for the exact same thing, it's likely we will see different results from Google. It'll vary based on whether I'm on my desktop or my mobile or my tablet. It'll be based on potentially whether I'm at home or not if you've got location attached. It'll be based on whether I'm signed into a Google service and they know who I am in my search history or not. And so they're very much personalizing search results. The idea here is they want to give us the best stuff that we're looking for. And so this means that in order to really score well in Google, we need to have lots of really great content that's easy to find and share, and then let their algorithm determine how that aligns with what people are actually searching for. The other piece to this then is everything I just said was what is the content. Engagement signals is how Google determines if it's any good. Because Google's really smart. They can read an article and know what you're talking about. They can understand phrases and sentences and paragraphs, but they can't understand if it's any good or if anyone cares. So they look to this thing called engagement signals. If people are commenting or liking or sharing or add links back from their blog to your stuff. You know, if you're an article about a business and then they say on their news page of their website that, hey, so-and-so wrote an article about me, and they link back, that's good. That's good for you. It's an engagement signal that shows Google that you're relevant. The more engagement signals and the better quality of the engagement signals, the higher your content will rank on a given search intent. To move on and show you sort of a real-world example of how all these things fit together. So we're going to talk about Steamboat Magazine in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We just had a conversation with them about tags, so they're fresh in our mind. You might have an article about the top 9 places for visitors to visit in Steamboat Springs. And I want to stress as we go through this, there's art and science at play. If you're going to do 9 items in an article, this is not the only title you could use that would be good. It's just one that we happened to craft and came to mind. But you want to use descriptions in your titles, and keywords are actually okay here. Steamboat Springs, visit, top list, that all is signals to Google about what this is about. And of course, when someone sees it in a search result, or if someone likes it to Facebook, this is shown. So it's a good signal to readers, and definitely right for readers first. You don't want to be too short with your titles because, frankly, on the web there's no context. So if you just said top places to visit and I see it on Facebook, that might be in the world as opposed to in Steamboat Springs. So you want to add some context. You would categorize this as perhaps travel or community or a couple other topics, and you know, all of these are broad enough that it's interesting, and anything in travel is grouped together, so that's useful. Now, tags is where you have some flexibility. You can put steamboat attractions, steamboat ski area, steamboat entertainment. Those are all sort of quasi-categories, right? They're tags, but they're broad. I'm sure you could have a lot of stuff talking about, you know, in Steamboat, lots of articles about various ski areas, so that's good. You want to think about this as, will I ever have an article in the future that uses this tag again? If the answer is no, it's a bad tag. Why is that? Because tags are only useful in helping people find related content, and if there is no other content, there's no related content. Steamboat attractions, sufficiently broad, you're going to probably have stuff in the future. So these are really useful, not because they are on the page as tags, but because they're going to help group and customize content for your readers. Now, one area of this that is more art than science is, in this particular example, do I use the names of the 9 places I reference in my article as a tag? Well, that depends. Are you likely to write an article about that place again in the future and thus reuse the tag? If the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, then don't do it. Like all things online, you can always edit and modify it later, but that would be a guiding factor. And again, if you have any questions about this stuff, I know sometimes it's a little bit dry, but it should be very applicable for you as you're posting your content here. I'll also say that as you post content from a given issue, from the January 2014 issue, that's your tag, January 2014. It should not be the January issue. It should not be 2014. It should not be current issue. It should be January 2014 issue. So all the articles that are related to this issue are grouped together. So definitely don't use things like Steamboat or the location that you're in. Your whole website's built about being Steamboat. You don't need to identify that. And in fact, what it would do is it would create a tag page that has a ton of different, completely unrelated content, which is the opposite of the benefit. It's not like zero, it's a negative when it comes to search and from user engagement. Because if I go somewhere where I think I'm going to find something relevant and it's not, you just trick me. And people don't like to be tricked. So the only time you would want to use a location is if it's a specific venue. Not like downtown Fayetteville would potentially be something you would use, but not just Fayetteville. A couple tips that I'll have Ryan run through with you as you look at how do I implement this effectively, and also again, this isn't more work. This is things you're already doing. We just want to help make sure you're getting the most out of it.
Yeah, so Brian stole a little bit of my thunder on the last slide, but a couple tips and best practices for you to think about as you're posting content to your site. The first one, and for whatever reason this has come up a few times recently with some of our affiliates, which is why we wanted to include it, is if you have a really long article, you're going to want to split that up and post the article separately. This is especially important when you want to rank in Google for the individual topics. So, coming back to the Steamboat example that we've been using, they just did an article of the 36, athletes from Steamboat Springs that are going to be in the Olympics. And if you put that all in one article, you're missing an opportunity to optimize around the names of the Olympians. So we recommended to them that they split it up into 36 different articles, and that's going to be good for them in terms of SEO because they wanted to rank for the specific names of the athletes, and otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. So I think Brian here is pulling up the other example that we saw recently, the most eligible singles for 2014. And you can see here that we started with a kind of summary article, and then we used the cross-linking feature that we've talked about in the past to link out to each person's individual article, or in this case, it's kind of like a profile. This has a couple things. Obviously, I just talked about the SEO benefit of it, but now you have 36, or how many were in this, Brian?
I think there were 17 in this case.
Yeah, so in this case you have 17 different articles that would have been one article before, and you get people to click around your site. This is what we talk about when we talk about the engagement metric that some of us that we've talked about in the past. You get people to stay on your site for longer periods of time. That's really good, and it's something that you can use to show off when you're having conversations with potential advertisers.
And I'll just add, to go back to the old cartoon song that I remember from a kid, where knowledge is power, if you have one article, you have one data point, and you get 10,000 views of that article, and that's terrific. Well, as Ryan said, if you had one main article, then you would also get thousands of views of these secondary pieces. But which of these most eligibles are people most interested in? You can't know. But if you break them out like this, and lots of people read about Rhett, maybe that's a signal to you that, we should do a follow-up article, or there's something about him that resonates with our readers. What can we learn from this? So you want to take advantage of the potential information available online. And yes, we are monitoring the network, so as we see trends, we're going to reach out to you as well. Now, since we're here just to come on down to look at a real-world example, I'm going to put Fresno Life on the spot here. You can see some of these titles: Beer Love Most Eligible Singles of 2014, Brewery Owner Single. So most eligible singles of 2014? Great. That means these related articles will always pull in other articles from this particular topic. Rhett Williams could be good if you're going to write more about him. Brewery owner, potentially. If you've got a microbrewery community, great. Fresno Life Magazine, should be gone. Of course it's Fresno Life Magazine. That's what site we're on. Single love is stretching it. It's pretty vague. Beer, potentially, if you're going to have a lot of articles about beer and brewery and whatnot. 27, no go. You may be 27 years old, but unless you're going to write a whole series about 27-year-olds, that's not any good. Plus, if you were, you'd want to say, 27-year-olds, not 27. So there's some work to do here. We see this a lot. It shouldn't be a surprise, but those are some things that can be done to dramatically improve the impact there. So I'll let Ryan get back to addressing the rest of the suggestions.
So we talked about how the title of the page is part of the URL. The reason why you wouldn't want to include Fresno Life in there is because it's already part of your domain name. It's already kind of captured in the SEO equation. This type of splitting up your articles is particularly useful for people, but it can expand beyond that to several different topics. I think that on average, web articles typically run between 500 and 1,000 words. So if you have a 30,000 word story, you should start thinking about how to split it up if there's no other natural way to do it. Like you've seen here, you could just do a series or a 3-part whatever. That's one way to think about it. Moving on to the next point, you should use an average of 2 to 3 tags on each article. This kind of just keeps you, focused on what the main topics are. Again, coming back to the relevancy thing with Google, if you have a lot of different tags, it sends a signal to them that's saying, hey, you're not really even sure what this article is about, so how do we know what it's about? There are situations where you can use more than that, but 2 to 3 is a good starting point. Brian already talked about avoid using your town or publication name as a tag. It's just not necessary. It's already in the URL. Instead use something like Steamboat Attractions or Steamboat Best Of. It's okay to use the location along with, some other qualifier if the Best Of is only in Steamboat Springs, for example. And then to wrap up, use the same tags for related articles or a series of articles to help people find new content. I mean, at the end of the day, we've said it now 3 or 4 times. I'm going to say it again. It's that important. It's meant to help you group things together. And as Brian's showing you now at the bottom of the page, our You Might Also Like section that appears at the bottom of every article is driven off of these tags as well. So even within our site, taking Google out of the equation, tags is a way to, dictate what shows up in that section from article to article.
That's absolutely right. And so, the better your tagging goes, the better the related articles will be and the more likely someone will click through. I'll also say this is one exception to the rule where you can have more than 2 to 3. Shireen Bailey is on this particular article, which is why she's tagged. And if I click on her tag link, if it's been used on other articles, they will appear on this list. It looks like the article specific to Shireen didn't have it, and so it's not appearing here. In this case, you'd want to go back and edit it and make sure to add Shireen to that. You'd have at least a list of 2, and that'd be a good place to start. So this is how that will play out. Now, for those of you who've been attending pretty regularly, you'll probably remember a few weeks ago, or a month or whatever it was with the holidays, that we talked about creating local guides. And we talked about being able to cross-link content and use the insert features. All of these things work together. And so as you look at creating guides and other activities, you can use the insert features to manually control what content appears in the article or the page and how it links out to an event or a directory listing. You can use tags to link articles together in this way. And it really comes down to creating a local resource. So you've got all this great content, and it's the situation where the sum of the parts, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I always screw that up. You take 1 plus 1, you make it equal to 3. And so when you use these practices and the tips and the tricks and you're implementing tags effectively, you're going to get more out of the exact same effort that you're putting in today. You want to couple that with sharing to Facebook and email newsletters, which we talked about last time, and you'll start to see your traffic and engagement really start to grow. Um, just to give you a quick preview, we're about a month out on this, but we are working on a new tag system. It will allow you to do a lookup of tags, so it'll make it easier for you to find tags that are already in use, and less likely that you will create similar but different tags in the future. And so you'll have these little, they're called pills, but appear as you type a tag, and it'll do a lookup. So that'll be helpful for that. It'll also make sure as you have bloggers or writers that they're less likely to go crazy with a whole slew of very similar but different tags. We will also use the new tag system to introduce the notion of subcategories. In a sense, a tag is a subcategory, but we're going to build an element where you'll be able to specify on a category by category basis which tags should be used as subcategories. And here's a site we don't work with, but they did a nice job of it. So we're sort of going to be emulating that, how it appears on the mega menu, and we'll give you some more options on the navigation bar there. So if you have any opinions on the use of subcategories and objectives or goals that you have there, we definitely love to hear from you as we work on this over the next month or so. All right. I'm going to transition. I'm going to talk about some of the tech updates that have been deployed over the last week or so. Again, important stuff for you to know. We're going to send out an email that's going to have probably the last month worth of tech updates, which is a bit of a laundry list, but here are a few things you really need to know today. The first is we just deployed an update that gives each and every business review its own page. This means as your businesses are collecting reviews, not only will it appear on their profile, but you can sort of drill down to the page level. Now, let me show you what this looks like. So we did this for a few reasons. The first is Google's really looking at more and more content that's systematic and structured data, as they say. And so here I'm looking at South Style. On-site PCs collected 7 5-star reviews. Great for them. They can use it in the reviews widget, as we talked about before. I can click in here to read more about this review. And here's sort of the long form of each of the reviews. And let's say now I would like to share this review because I wrote it, or perhaps I'm on-site PC and I want to, pat myself on the back. Now I can click Share Review, and I go to the review specific page. Now this means that this particular review is shareable, where before you could share all the reviews but not a specific review. So it's great for that. It's good for Google. As people search for this, this will become visible on Google, as will the reviews, so it'll change how it appears. And it's part of our overall push to create new pages from content already on the system. You're going to see this happening on comments. So those of you who've run contests in the past or just generally get a lot of engagement, each comment will ultimately, probably 2 months out, have its own page, so it will be shareable. But it also means if you're running a contest and I want people to vote for me, so I win, I can share my review specifically, and it just is more way to drive that. And of course, like I said before, knowledge is power. We will see more and more data appear that affects this. We'll also be using this general technique as we start looking at things like introducing a classified system and other user-generated content that's more granular that we'd like to have in place. We've also implemented an auto crop of the main image. So as you know, when you upload your main image, you have the option to crop it. That's still true, but we're actually already automatically cropping it just in case you forget, so that it looks good anywhere it appears on the site. It fills the space appropriately. Now it's taking the middle third, or the middle section, so if it's a portrait image, it will cut a lot of the top and bottom off, but if it's a landscape, it'll just trim a little bit. If you don't like how it trims, you can always hit the crop button and recrop it however you'd like, although I would strongly recommend that any cropping, or rather any main images that you use, are in landscape mode, as they'll just generally look better. But the idea is better presentation without any of the extra effort. We made a real subtle change. You probably noticed, or you may recall when you signed up and you looked at your profile in the admin section, that there's this idea of a nickname. Now, if you have a nickname defined, it will use that as your byline. So if you don't have it defined, it uses your first name. If you define a nickname, it will use Mr. Ostrowski or editor guy or whatever I put in there. I'll still stress, do not use editor, do not use publisher. It's dry and it's boring, and people don't interact with dry and boring. So either use your name or a funny title that you want to apply to yourself, but have a personality with it, and use it effectively. To get there, just simply click in the admin under users, and then you can modify yourself or others to fill in the nickname. A lot of other bug fixes. No software is without its bugs. Gmail went down last week. It happens, but we're constantly working on fixing bugs, both those that are reported to us and those that we observe. We have a lot of software running to track that stuff. A couple of things you'll notice, the directory runs faster. We made some updates there to improve performance. There was a really unique bug that only a few of you have mentioned, but you may hear about or have heard about, and that's if I had registered for a business listing and my name was Dr. Brian Ostrowski and doctor had a period in it. That period would cause some problems with me being able to manage my listing. That's no longer an issue, so that's been addressed. And there was a bug that in some cases you as a site administrator could edit an article written by, say, a columnist, and it would change the byline from them to you. We've addressed that, so now you can edit articles without accidentally updating the byline to be changed. One thing that is coming, I don't have an exact timeline on this, but the ability to assign authorship. And this is great should you have writers who you don't want to give access to the system, or maybe stuff that comes from businesses as an advertorial. You want to assign it to the business owner. That'll be a way that you can do that as we implement that. It's not there yet, so just to be clear, but these are some things that we're working on. And I foreshadow some of this stuff to give you a sense of where we're going, but also to hopefully solicit some feedback as we go. So with that, we're at 31 minutes. Makes me happy to be on time. We're done with the items we wanted to hit on today. We'd love for you to ask any questions that you have, as well as anything that you'd like us to cover next week or in the coming weeks. We'd really love to know what you're working on, whether it's putting together a media kit, proposal, trying to figure out how to grow traffic, whatever it is. We want to help with that, and again, help you get going with MailChimp. Let's see. I had a question here. With the byline update, does it restrict access still for that original author? I'll assume that you mean editing access. As a site admin, you should be able to edit or modify any content that appears on the site, regardless of who the author is. There was, or perhaps still is, an error in the editor user type, which we're working on, which will address that particular issue as well. Eric, is that the question that you had, or were you asking something else? All right. Looks like that was a question. So yeah, as long as you're a site admin, you can edit any content on the site or delete any content on the site that you deem fit. All right. Well, we'll stick around for a couple minutes to field any other questions that you all have. Hopefully, you can put some of these practices into play starting today. And actually, while you're typing, I changed my mind. I'm going to give you a sneak look at something I'd like you all to take a look at. As you know, we post a lot of content on our blog. We spend a lot of time trying to identify things that are valuable for you. Sometimes we miss the mark, but hopefully most of it's pretty interesting. You should be looking at this. You're going to get an email from us in half an hour about this particular post, but I think it's really important to share, so I'm going to take 5 minutes here. We've been looking across our network at what are the posts that go viral? What are the similarities? What can we learn from this? And so I wrote this article about 5 simple post types that you can use. Now, this isn't to say you shouldn't post the content you're already doing, but these are perhaps new things you can do that take a couple minutes here and there that can have a big impact. The most sort of, I'll say, eye-opening was this particular post here. Lost and found female husky. 2 pictures of a cute dog, what I'll call 4 paragraphs, although that's a bit of a stretch. It just is a dog that was found, and they were looking for the owner. Well, there was 1,000 likes to Facebook. This should be shocking. This is the local site, community of I don't know, let's call it 25,000 people, but effectively 1 out of 25 people in this community liked or shared this particular post. Um, that's huge. It's huge for traffic because this alone, this post got more traffic than many of your websites did for the month. But also, it's just really interesting to note that maybe you should talk to the local SPCA. Would they like to write a weekly post on dogs that have, or just pets of interest that they'd like to feature? Surely not all of them will get 1,000 likes, but this should be an indication of things that you might want to try, see how it goes, and then refine. There were 4 others. Local benefit. On the same site, actually, there was a girl who had an injury sledding, and someone from the community, one of her family friends, I take it, posted an event. This is one of the reasons we want to really cultivate an active events calendar for you. This particular event was posted by someone in the community and has been shared 300 times to Facebook. It's an example of doing well by doing good. It's unfortunate what happened to Susie, to be clear, but it's nice that they're able to rally support, and the publisher obviously wants to provide this as a community resource. So you want to try to get the community engaged with your calendar, and then you'll see things like this happening. Of course, you can further reach out to the person who posted it, learn more, maybe write an article, give more visibility to it, but also get more great content. It's nice when content comes to you. We also found some inclement weather announcements about school. If it's snowing where you're at, sharing what schools are closed or whatnot could be a really easy way to post some relevant content. And we talk a lot about ranking well on Google. All this stuff shows Google, we're all about the community. Traffic, disasters, fire reports, these things happen. They're unfortunate, but people are curious about them. I think I mentioned previously here where we live, a car literally drove into a Starbucks. I was curious what had happened, and so that's great local content. In this case, there's a local fire. This is a house that people can clearly see as they're driving by. It's probably a very common house on a common corner in this community. What happened there? People would like to know. So sharing this content or posting this content can become very shareable. And then finally, everybody's got their own local celebrities, people who get that big college scholarship or do well at the next level, celebrity news, so-and-so won an award at college. This lighthearted stuff plays well with all of your publications. You can do short form versions of it for the web as well to keep things fresh. And as a bonus topic, I know not all of you want to cover these things, but 2 that do get a fair amount of engagement are crime and obituaries. And so you'll have to decide for yourself if you want to feature, and if you do feature crime, what types of crime and all of that. But some of it's newsworthy, some of it's very locally relevant, and someone who's prominent in the community or just generally well loved passes. It's a chance to pay tribute to them, and it's a opportunity for you to solidify yourself as being dedicated to local community human interest stories. So anyways, that was your bonus material for this particular office hours. I do recommend you read it, and if you have any posts that you notice go viral, share them in the comments on the blog. I'd like to have others there from publishers directly. So with that, we'll call it a day, and hopefully all of you are finding stuff that you can apply. Thanks.